talk about the investors who are almost around 40 years old. Now, given that they are in their 40s, they are like a sandwich generation, slightly higher on the income side with skills that may need an upgrade and have the dual responsibility of children and parents in most cases. How should they think about their money? How can they plan for their goals that are there for their children as well as for their parents and themselves as well? So, let's discuss this and let's welcome on board Atul Shinghal, CEO Scripbox, Swarup Mohanty, CEO Director, Mirae Asset Investment Managers. Hello, good evening to the show, Swarup and Atul. And first question for you, Swarup. As we all know, we're talking about the middle age group and their relationship with money and their goal alignment and everything that revolves around their financial planning. So when we reach a certain age, okay, and here it is 40 years, what are we talking about in terms of your financial planning? Because at this age, what happens is things change, you know, your lifestyle changes, your income changes, dynamics in your personal and your professional life, everything is going through a very big change. How can one actually look at the relationship with their money at this particular juncture in life?
Kavita, first of all, thank you for having me on your show and on this very interesting topic. And I was just reflecting on my life when I turned 40 and that part of my age. And what you are saying is so relevant because that's a very important part of your life from a structuring of the future life perspective, structuring of your basic family life perspective, of course, looking at the future as to the number of dependents that you have, because it's also an age where probably your parents might also turn to you apart from your children that is there. So from money and money management perspective, it's probably the most important part of your life. If you've started looking at it, fantastic. If you haven't, then you better get very serious about money and start thinking about structuring it in a meaningful way. And everybody's meaning is different. So one has to get a hang of one's own life and go about building the money plans accordingly.
So, Atul, now let's take this phase-wise. First, let's talk about this age group and the kind of financial rapport they have with their partners, because a lot goes into financial planning. Obviously, at this age specifically, you need to, I mean, I'm sure you must have established a compatibility, but when we talk about financial compatibility, financial sharing and financial comfort, how important it is to be aligned with your partner, especially for the goals which can be combined for both of you.
Thanks, Kavita, for having me on the show. Yeah, I think this is the most relevant. This is sort of the age when you go from the me to the we, right? You've been thinking about building your career, you've been thinking about getting stability, and now you need to start worrying about, or at least thinking very deeply about, like Swarup said, parents, children, and yourself. So if you think about money requirements in 3 buckets, right? What do you need for yourself and your spouse? Like you said, how do you think about money together? What do you need for your children's education, maybe their marriages? What do you need for your parents, right? And there are different buckets with different timelines. So I think there's a systematic plan to figure out where you are, like Swarup said, that how much have I already saved up? What are our assets? What are our requirements, inflation adjusted over the next 40, 50 years? Remember, at 40, you're likely to live another 50, 60 years in today's healthcare, right? So how do you plan that journey in a systematic manner as a couple? And a lot of the couples planning is as much as they're financial goal related, they're also equally related to the expenses you do at this point in time. So how much are you spending on your needs and how much are you spending on your wants? Are you chasing a bigger car at the cost of your children's education? Are you chasing a more fancy address at the cost of your retirement? So I think these decisions taken as a couple are really important. And I think beyond just the decisions and planning around your expenses and your investments, it's also just sheer awareness, right? That what can you actually afford as a couple? And lastly, in this is about sharing even what you have, right? There's a standard, without sort of sounding sexist in this, that no, this is only a man handles this. I think that's a fundamentally wrong answer. The spouse should be equally involved with things, and life is ephemeral today, especially COVID taught us that. Are your passwords available to your family? Have you put enough nominee details on all your accounts? Do they have access to what you currently have in terms of your insurance, your net worth, your ESOPs? So just having a financial awareness, a financial plan, and a joint ownership of outcomes, which are both expenses and investments, is really important. This is far more easily said than done, but I would highly recommend this to everybody who's listening in.
Definitely. So, Swarup, now if we take this ahead, what in terms of your goal alignment one should be looking at this particular age? Because see, most of your goals, especially when you talk about your kids' education or maybe to a larger extent home loan, you are on the last leg of achieving it, or fulfilling those goals. But then a major goal, which is of your retirement, that's looking right in your face. So is it the time to quickly start acting on it now?
I think the need for retirement is very understood or underestimated in India. And if you look at some of the figures that come out, only 6% of the working population gets a pension, right? And then you typically work 30 years of your life to then support yourself for 30 more years. That's how it works. And with medication or medical science increasing, you will tend to live more, and more so for women, because women will outlive men. So it is not just, as Atul was pointing out, something about man or woman. It is something together, and retirement is definitely that one ticking bomb which this country is sitting on. Because even if you look at government jobs, the so-called pension is dwindling because we are moving to EPFO now, right? Or the NPS part of the world. So if you haven't started discussing retirement, if you haven't started planning retirement, nothing wrong with it, but the sooner you start it, better. And Atul and I were discussing just before this session started that the good part of investing is you can always correct your path and put something as a process for the future perspective. I think it is very important for everybody to get that figure right as to how much would be good for your retirement. And trust me, that figure can be very scary if you haven't started yet. So once you know how much you want, then working backwards as to how you'll build a portfolio, what should be your asset allocation, how you should prepare about going about your invest plan is very easy. I think the tougher part that lies, Kavita, is invariably we come to know that people underestimate their requirements for retirement. And Atul pointed out a very important part of the need for medical expenses to be built around that. And that's going to grow as we speak. And all that should be put in perspective, and a specific retirement plan can be made accordingly. My only caveat on that is once you start building a retirement plan, then stick to allocating that plan. Invariably, we have seen that you tend to redeem your long-term goal money for your short-term needs, especially for the bucket of retirement. You cannot do that. It is sacrilege.
All right. So retirement is a very important goal that you should start acting on if you haven't still. But then, Atul, at this age, how important it is to have an extra income, because in order to be successful, especially in your career, one needs to upgrade and upskill him or herself. Now, how important is this? And also the concept of a second income, because this can be like a second inning if at all you plan an early retirement. But then tell us how to go about it.
Depends very much on the need, right? I think there are two parts to it. Absolutely, for you to be relevant in today's world, you need to be continuously upskilling, because somebody can possibly much younger do your job faster, better, and you need to use your experience and your knowledge to stay ahead of the game. In terms of second income, I think, as Swarup was saying, depends on your financial plan, right? Say your expenses today are 2 lakhs a month. You need to retire at 60. You actually need to put aside 1 lakh a month to maintain that lifestyle if you have not done anything else, right? Because inflation is at 7-8% in India. Medical expenses need to be added to that. And some of the expenses might come down in terms of children's education, but other things will get added. So the moot point is that the second income should depend on what you already have, right? I would rather that you do more with your existing income and invest it well, rather than chase one more income. So upskill for this reason of doing better at your job, earning a higher salary, and let your money work for you, right? So rather than sort of you working harder for money, let your money work for you, invest it systematically on an asset allocation model. And just 1 lakh a month, and I know say just 1 lakh does sound a small amount, but if you're 40 and earning a reasonable salary, by the time you're 60, you could build a corpus of 10 to 12 crores, if not more, by just prudent investing, by putting a lakh. So while the 10 crore looks like a very far away number and scares you, but if you break it down that you can get there is really important. So our advice to all our customers is get started, keep investing, and remain invested. So those three mantras, that get started now, if you're not started yet, keep investing and let your money work for you rather than look for only a second income. If it's available, so be it, but that shouldn't be the primary driver for how you'll save money and invest.
But Swarup, I also want to focus on the concept of early retirement, which is almost at the age of 40. Now, can this be that time where you look at the second income at this age through your retirement portfolio? So early retirement as a concept and having an investment portfolio is important for you, but at the same time, retiring early and having your investment portfolio as a second income, how does this sound to you?
Kavita, you also know that you and I have had discussions on this subject many a times. See, each one has to lead their own life. If somebody wants to retire at 40, nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong with it. But one has to have prepared for that. See, whether you like it or not, you will need money. And if you're retiring at 40 and an average age of 75, you have to have enough money to last you that 35 years going forward. If you have prepared for it and you have it aside, go ahead, lead your life, nothing wrong with it. If you haven't, then you have to rethink all that. And that's where it comes to each individual. And each individual's life is very different. So it is wrong to sort of compartmentalize and say, okay, this is right or that is wrong. It depends on the standard of living. I think Atul talked about two very important aspects, need and want. As long as your needs are taken care of, you can always control your want, but your need has to be provided for. If that is done, and then that has come from your passive income from your investments, I think the person is a genius to have done it at 40. I mean, it will be all credit to that person. Fantastic work then.
I mean, just as a rule of thumb, Kavita, sorry, that if you've got an annual expense of about 20 lakhs, right, and that I'm talking about post-tax, you need a minimum corpus of about 6 crores or 5-6 crores just to maintain that lifestyle, inflation adjusted. So keeping real about what that number is really important. So talking to somebody, while retirement is an absolutely fantastic goal based on your needs and wants and what you want to choose, but if you want to live off your financial savings, and that second income is the returns from those savings, dipping into anything more than 4% of your corpus, and I feel 75 is underestimating it. Our own parents, God bless their soul, live to 80, 85, 90, and that number is only increasing. So retiring at 40 and expecting that money to run for 50 years, you need to have done your math very, very well, because this does not include any shocks to the system, right? Even this 4% number of the corpus, which I talked about, which is a rule of thumb, is a simple math. So if you want to retire, take your annual expenses, add tax on top of it, multiply by 25. If you have that money, think about retiring.
All right, let's talk about the scenario of layoffs, okay, where we see the impact on this mid-management level. And it's really sad because, you know, being laid off puts a brake on regular income. Definitely, mentally, it breaks you down. And if you've been someone who's not invested properly, this could be the toughest phase in your life. So how can one actually cope with this? And if in case one has not really prepared for it, what will be the strategy to protect yourself financially, to be on stronger grounds financially, if at all this situation arises in your life, Swarup?
Kavita, I God forbid nobody gets laid off. You know, that's my first wish. But you know, you cannot prepare for a layoff, because more often than not, it comes unannounced. That is why the importance of starting investing very early is always recommended. It's as early as your first paycheck. If you start investing prudently, one would have created some kind of a buffer. There is always this discussion, which Atul did talk about, of having an emergency fund. The basic advice is always to keep 6 months aside for your household work or basic needs to be put aside, so that you know you are prepared for any sort of emergency. Forget a layoff. Now, if you're a good professional and if you've been laid off, now I would back myself to get another job within 6 months is my way of looking at things. And if I have not got a job in 6 months, then I would question my own capability. I'm just speaking very ruthlessly or very honestly in front of you. But at least a 6 months of emergency kept aside would keep you afloat for some period of time. But you also discussed the need for having higher education or the need for always upgrading yourself. See, it's a very simple thing, Kavita. If your external environment is moving faster than you, then you are already disrupted. The key is to always know that you have to move faster than your external environment. If you are in that position more often than not, you will not be laid off. And that's professional life or professional ruthless life for you. You have to work on yourself. And if you have to work on that, you have to provide for your education also, and something which you alluded to, which I thought was a very good suggestion.
All right. So now, because I have both of you on the panel, it's the right time to address viewers on the the kind of panic that's currently in the market, and this is also the failure of SB Bank and other banks globally. Although this story is a broad base, the investors in India completely panic about it with the uncertainty. Swarup, what will be your message to the investors, viewers, and the users right now?
So I think the answer is in three parts. God forbid if you do get laid off. We are hoping that you've listened to people like us earlier and actually have an emergency corpus of 6 months of expenses. Keep that money aside. You shouldn't have dipped into it earlier. Cut your wants, right? Bring your expenses down. Absolutely, be ruthless. Try to stretch that money to a year rather than just 6 months. So travel, holidays, be extremely prudent. Secondly, my advice at this age, I can afford to give this, is pick a job. Right? Very often I've seen people get stuck on that. I was already earning 40 lakhs. How can I recalibrate? My net worth is coming down. My self-worth is coming down. If somebody's paying you 30 lakhs, pick that job today. You will come back. If you're confident of who you are, you will come back rocketing very fast. So don't get stuck in a number in your head. It's easier to just get started again because you owe it to yourself and your family. The third thing I would say is talk to the family, right? Make them aware. And I've seen people who don't tell their family when they're laid off. Because they think it's either an ego thing, but I would rather that you let the family participate and make them aware of the pain we are all going through as a family. And because expenses are managed by everybody, right? So while income might be managed by one or two people, so just making sure that everybody's aware and you're doing this together. Yeah. So stretch your money that you have, take a lower paying job if that's what it requires, involve the family in the situation as early as possible. They're very resilient. And that's my answer to that question.
A very tough phase, especially if you are someone who's laid off, but then that's the roadmap to protect yourself financially and to be financially strong and stable before any sort of crisis like this just comes in your life. But then, as I was asking you earlier, Swarup, and because I have you on the panel, it's right time to address your investors, our viewers, and the users all everywhere. The current panic that's felt in the Indian markets. What will be your message to our viewers? Looking at the kind of uncertainty that's emerging?
See, Kavita, it's a very simple philosophy. 99% of wealth is created by a person's own behavior, and 1% is created by market behavior. While 99% of investors track the market behavior and 1% track their own behavior. The world will behave in their own way. And when you've had two large events like COVID and then a war, there is a fair amount of volatility which will unfold. And that's something which is anticipated and known to everybody around us. That cannot be controlled, right? What can be controlled is how you approach your investing. Stick to your plan, number one. This country, irrespective of whatever anybody says, will go from 3 trillion to 6 trillion. The benefit of that journey is only going to come back to you through the capital markets. And the benefit will come back to you if you are invested in that capital markets. So if you do not have money to invest more, don't exit with the money that you have. And this period between now and when data becomes correct is the time when you will get the value in the market. So these are fantastic accumulation times in equity. Due to all this, you are getting some great yields on the debt side. So it's a good time to invest in debt too. And if you look at global markets, some global markets are available to you at some fantastic prices. So I always maintain at this moment, the investor is spoiled for choice. Look at strengthening your portfolio in this period of time, stick to your asset allocation and continue the journey. And at the end of it, if a person just continues the journey, the portfolio kicker one will get can be pretty significant. Is a very unemotional way of looking at it, and investing is unemotional.
Exactly. Atul, what do you have to say?
So Kavita, yeah, we keep saying this: time in the market and not timing the market. Time in the market, not timing the market. Just remain invested. We've seen, I mean, people like us who've been around for slightly longer, the 2000 meltdown, the 2008 crisis, corrections over the year. We've seen COVID come and hopefully go. We've seen the Ukraine war. We've seen SVB crisis. I think these are events which will happen. In the long term, in India is a growth economy. Remember, nominal growth is what matters to us, not the real growth from an investor's perspective. Well-run companies in India will grow at 12 to 14 to 15%, 5-6% of real growth, 5-6% of inflation. So if your portfolio returns, and then with great fund managers like Swarup on your side, we are very confident as wealth managers that our customers, as long as they remain invested with a plan for the long term, these are all things which will happen. So don't panic. This too shall pass, and more will come. It's not that this is the last big event. More such events will keep happening. Let that not disturb your mental peace. Sleep easy. Just remain invested with a plan.
Exactly. So don't panic, stay invested and maintain discipline in your investment. Thank you so much, Swarup and Atul, for being on the show and helping our viewers with all of this today. On that note, let's take a quick break, and post that we'll discuss the center's guidelines for social media influencers and celebrities.
Powered by Mirae